Alright guys, I'm about to start replacing the heater core on my 1997 Lincoln Town Car. Now, of course, this works great for a 1997 Lincoln Town Car, but this process should be basically the same for all second generation Panther Ford bodies, which ran from 1990 to 2002, I believe. The Ford Panther body extended to the Ford Crown Victoria, the Grand Marquis, and the Lincoln Town Car. So any three of those different vehicles from that era, it should basically be very similar with slight different details. But yeah, I've never done this one before. I'll tell you guys that right now. I have done 3 or 4 different expeditions and navigators of around the same time period, and even an F-150, and they were all the same. That was from 97 to 98. So I do have a little bit of experience in doing similar stuff, but I've never done anything like this on a Lincoln Town Car or a Panther body, so it'll be a learning experience for sure. Now, the first thing I did is I pulled this up, and I was able to lift it up with my fingers. I just kind of grabbed onto it. I'm trying to be cautious to not use my flathead screwdriver if possible, because I don't want to leave, I don't want to damage anything. So I was able to grab it and pick this up, and it came off pretty easily. I just had to lift it one side at a time and get all these little clips lifted up. After you lift it up, you want to make sure you don't lose any of these little metal clips that are attached. I struggled a little bit to figure out what was the right socket for these, and it turns out it is a pretty odd one. It's 5.5 millimeter for all of these bolts up here. Before you can drop it down, I'm gonna have to take these bolts out. They go into the piano hinge for it, and they are a size 7 millimeter. I'm working on trying to remove the glove box. I noticed that there's a string that's different than the F-150s and Navigator and Expedition. So I'm gonna, and there's a little hook down here. I can't really see it from this angle, but there's a hook that the string is connected to. I'm gonna unconnect the string. So the first thing we're gonna do is disconnect that. And then, I'm having a hard time showing this, but there are these clips right here. You have to push on both sides. You can do them one at a time, but usually you do both at the same time. You push in and push in on this side. Alright, now my glove box drops all the way down. Okay, I got the dashboard out. These are the little clips that you have to push in to allow it to drop down. Here's the inside of the glove box. I know that these two bolts gotta go. I'm gonna put these screws that came out of the top right here. The screws that came out of the glove box piano hinge are gonna go right here. Every single time I do one of these jobs, I end up with like 5 or 6 screws. I don't know where they went. So I want to prevent that. Okay, I just removed these little black inserts. Now it has a little slot right here. It looks like you're supposed to put the screwdriver in there, but I found that was kind of difficult, and it seemed like it was easier to pry under the middle and start in the middle, because it has these little things sticking out that kind of make it difficult to start at the end. Whereas if you start in the middle, it will slide this out of there once you lift the middle up. Now this has to be removed so I can get to these screws. That way I can, you don't have to necessarily remove this, but I have to lift it up and slide it over so I can get the kick plate. I don't know. This thing's got to go. Okay, right here underneath the dash is the plug for the airbag. So I'm going to unplug that, and I'm going to take out that screw. Where is it at? Oh, it's down there. That gold screw or brass screw. And then another brass screw here. And my glove box should come out at that point. Now, it should be worth noting that in the official book from Ford, you are supposed to disconnect the ground from your battery before you start doing stuff like this. Okay, I'm working on getting rid of the airbag, and it takes a 5/16 socket with an extension to take these 2 bolts out from underneath of the glove box that I showed previously, or the airbags, that way the airbag can come out. I started trying to push the airbag out, but I found that it just would not come out without something else coming out first. So I got my flathead and I put it right here and applied a little bit of pressure, and I was able to pop this off. So I'm gonna see if I can't work this the rest of the way off. There it goes. And I got this disconnected, so that's good. Now I just need to disconnect a plug going here, and I guess the plug going to these as well. Here's the piece that came off, and again, same as before, I'm gonna make sure all these little metal clips did not slide off. Okay, I've switched back to my 7mm socket, and I noticed that there are 2 bolts right here. They look like they go to the airbag, so I believe after I remove those 2, the airbag will pop out. I know I gotta remove this one along with this whole vent assembly thing. I'm gonna go ahead and take out the rest of these bolts, one there, one there, and there's probably one on the other side. That way I can remove this whole cluster, and mainly because I want to clean behind everything. I also want to remove the instrument panel because I believe there's some light bulbs that are bad. Now I think that all that is not really necessary to get to the heater core. Okay, so I need to remove this trim over here, and I did the same thing. I put the flathead in here and just kind of applied some pressure. It didn't really make a mark too bad, so I think that was a good idea. Now I can go ahead and pull this the rest of the way off. Okay, I got it off, but for some reason this wire back here is so tight that I'm having a hard time getting to the plug to disconnect it. So I'm hoping I can get my screwdriver back there to release the plug. Using my screwdriver, I was able to push back there on the button that releases the plug, and I got it out. So, but again, I think that's going to be difficult to plug that back in. That is incredibly short. I feel like there's got to be some slack to this back underneath here that's stuck on something. That doesn't make a lot of sense for it to be that tight. I have 2 more bolts right here that I'm removing with the 7mm socket, and then after that there are 2 screws up there. Alright, I've been trying to remove the airbag, but it seems that this piece has to come out first before the airbag can come out, and I believe I'm gonna have to take the radio out in order to remove the bezel. There must be a screw back behind the radio that's holding it. I still haven't removed those screws yet though, so I'm gonna do them screws and see how it feels from there, but I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to remove this radio next. And to remove these radios, you just have to slide 2 metal rods in each side. It's not a screw or anything, it's just a little like release thing. 7mm socket for both of those bolts above the instrument cluster. I got those out. Now again, all the bolts I'm keeping nice and organized in here in different bins according to where they went, and starting from the right working to the left. So I'm going to put it in this bin right here. Alright, I've got these 4 skinny screwdrivers. I'm hoping that these will work. If I slide them into the holes, it should grab it. Yes, they make a special tool for this, but I don't have that tool. But you can use just about anything. It goes in and stops, and then you can feel it applying pressure, and you hear that sound. That's it releasing the radio. Alright, so I think it's ready to come out, and basically all I have to do is grab these and kind of pinch them together, which will hold pressure so they don't slip out, and the whole radio should come out with it. Alright, the left side is loose, but the right side is hung up on something, so I'm still working on it. Alright, I think the one screwdriver on the right wasn't thick enough, I'm not sure, so I put a different screwdriver in there, and I gave it a good pull, and I heard it make a click sound, and it popped out. So radio is ready to come out. Now I just need to disconnect the harness in the back and see what's behind here. Okay, there were 2 plugs. Alright, I gave it a good pull with my hand under here and it popped loose. But, you know, of course this isn't going to come out if you don't remove the radio because of the wires going to the radio. I got it out. There was 2 plugs on the headlight switch. There was a plug for that warning light cluster and a plug for this warning light cluster. And now I can check all these bulbs. You twist these, and then they pop out, and I can see which bulbs are bad and which are not, and hopefully I can just swap LED replacements into those. I did have to drop it down into first gear in order to remove that. Okay, now I see why it wouldn't come out. You see this lip right here? this lip was behind that. So you in fact do need to remove the radio and this instrument cluster, well, it's a bezel, in order to remove the airbag. And removing the airbag is necessary to drop the dash to be able to get to the heater core. Okay, the airbag popped right out. That was easy once I removed the bezel from here. Now I can see what's back here. Now I was told that this vent has got to go along with over here. I was removing this part right here and I was really struggling to get this thing off, and I broke something. I broke my first piece here. That little tab right there. There's the part it was connected to. I'm pretty sure that's pretty done, unfortunately. Alright, it's actually worse than I thought. I broke the part that the top clip goes into as well. But I'm hoping that when I put it back together, it'll just kind of stay in place. So I took these 3 screws out. One thing that's helping is I got this little vacuum so I can suck out the dirt from the holes that are in there. That way I can get my screws out. I still have this screw right here to go. So I got this side done too. It's important to note that this screw that goes up there is slightly longer than the other ones. Right here is the shift indicator cable. I will need to disconnect that so that I can drop the steering wheel. As you can see, the shift indicator cable wraps around the steering wheel. In order for me to drop the steering wheel and to get to the heater core, I'm gonna have to disconnect the cable one way or the other. Okay, I figured out that to remove the instrument cluster, there are 4 bolts that you use a 7mm socket to take out. And I can't remove the instrument cluster without disconnecting the shift indicator cable. To do that, I need to remove this plate down below. That one takes 2 bolts that are also 7mm. One of them goes through up inside this hole on the parking emergency brake release thingy. I removed this rusty old plate underneath here with a 5/16 socket. There was 5 bolts. I've taken the 3 screws out that hold this bar on. There's 1, 2 there, and 1 right here. Now the bar is ready to come out, except for it's connected to this plastic plate down here. And I think that it's probably just some clips that are holding it. The socket that I used to remove the bar that was under here was also 5/16. There was a little plastic clip holding it. That's it right there. I think it was going over there. I had to disconnect the light bulb that unscrewed from here in order to remove all of this. So here's the shift indicator cable. I need to take that bolt out right there. It looks like a very tiny socket. And also right here is the wheel, the adjustment wheel to adjust your shift indicator cable if it's not telling you what gear you're actually in. 7/32 socket. 7/32 socket removes this bolt right here. I have removed the shift indicator cable. Now you want to be careful with these because they are made of very light plastic, and it is easy to break these. This was a really tight squeeze. I was able to fold it down and seeing the 2 plugs in the back, and very carefully, I was barely able to get my finger back there to release the plug so I can pull this out. I'm going to very carefully pull the shift indicator cable out the side here, and now it should come out freely. Earlier I talked about this cable being incredibly tight and not enough slack. Well, I found down here it was doubled up, folded over, and taped together. So once I removed that tape, it does give it a lot more slack that will make it much easier to put back together. This bolt right here was, this one was a number 15mm socket. This bolt right here had a nut on it that I took off with, let me see, a 10mm socket. I'm going to go ahead and drop the steering wheel next. Now I know that this plug needs to come disconnected. For me to do that, I figured out that a number 13 socket will take these off. It appears that there are 2 more bolts in the back, one, and then I can't see the other, but there it is. I think that's the other one. 2 more bolts to drop the steering wheel. So I believe there's 4 altogether. But again, I know I need to remove this bolt first. I mean, this plug. But in order to remove the plug, there's actually a bolt holding this one in. I need a 7mm socket to remove the bolt for this plug. I dropped the steering wheel. After I removed those 4 nuts, it dropped right. Well, I did have to do quite a bit of wiggling, and I had to work it down. It didn't just drop right down, but because it was 4 bolts, it was resting on one, then resting on the other, and so I had to work with it. But it finally dropped down. I was trying to be cautious, make sure I wasn't hooked on any wires or anything, but I believe that's how you do it. So I was fairly confident that it wasn't wires that were holding me up, it was just getting hung up on the other bolts. Under here we have 2 bolts that need a number 10 socket. It turns out that I needed a deep socket. Deep socket, I can't remember, is it 15? Yeah, deep, number 15mm deep socket to get to this. I was trying to get it from this angle, but it turns out that you need to hit it from this angle, from down here. It turns out that the I don't know what this stuff was holding this from coming out. So once I opened the door and pulled this off, the dashboard came free. The dashboard is free. It doesn't seem like it wants to move much more than this, though, is what I'm very concerned about now, because I don't see how I'm going to be able to do the heater core if that's as far as I can pull it back. So I'm gonna have to see what I can do. I see one thing that's holding me back is that plastic plate down at the bottom. Just like there was a plastic plate on the driver's side, it's gonna be held in with clips, I'm sure. Check this out. One of the things that the bolt screws into, these little clips, that one almost fell on me. The rest of them are intact. This one's gone. It's somewhere down in the dash. Hopefully I can retrieve it, but that is something to be mindful of. I was so irritated, I ended up breaking another part. I broke the plastic cover that was under here because it was making me mad. So I broke that getting it off. I have the seat all the way back, and when I went to drop the steering wheel, I noticed that it was resting on the seat. However, I saw from some different videos that people had the steering wheel sitting on the floor, which I do believe will be necessary to do this job. So I realized that I was able to push the steering wheel in to drop it to the floor. I'm thinking I'm going to go ahead and put the gear shift all the way down as well, to give me more space to drop the dash further. Now the steering wheel's on the floor. To remove this ground, I'm using a 7/16 socket. Okay, I removed the ground and I put the bolt back in the hole, which is always a good idea so you don't lose the bolt. Even though I've done a really good job of staying organized with all this, every single bolt and the socket that goes to it is in this in order, starting from here, working my way all the way down. So when I go back to put it back together, it should be a breeze. I got the dash pulled back. Now what is stopping me from going a little further is that wire clip right there. So I'm going to pull that apart. Hopefully I can move the dash out and put it on the seat. If I do that, I should be able to get the air plenum chamber out, which is right there. The heater core is encased around that silver thing on top. I got it disconnected from there, but it's still a little tight. I noticed that the wire harness is sitting on top of this. And if I pull it down from there, it gives me another inch of space. Upon doing some research, it looks like this is as far out as I need to move the dash to replace the heater core. The stretched wires and the hose should be fine. But at this point, I'm going to go underneath the hood and do a couple things. So I need to remove my hoses. Now I thought these were quick release hoses, so I bought the quick release hose disconnection tool, which I in fact do not need, but that's okay. But that's good. These are a lot easier to deal with. So I'm going to take them 2 clamps loose, pull these 2 hoses off. Now back there, that bolt right there, I'm going to loosen that bolt, and then I'm going to use a tap to punch the bolt back through, because that is the top bolt holding the air plenum chamber on. First, I'm going to remove this so I can get to it. And I've realized that Well, I think it's a number 10. Hold on, let's see. Yeah, it's a number 10 socket. I'm gonna take this loose so I can do that. I also need to loosen these 2 bolts. So there's only 3 bolts, but the top bolt is so hard to get to. From what I understand, that it's easier to loosen it from underneath the hood and then tap the bolt through. After I do that, the air plenum chamber should drop out of place so I can replace the heater core. Now, in order to take this loose, I had to unplug this first so I can even get my socket to that nut. I've loosened this thing up. I don't know what that is. And I put the nuts back on the studs so I don't lose them. Now I can disconnect the hoses and remove the nut from that stud. I got the clamps off. I'm trying to get the hoses off, but they are stuck on there so much. I saw online that there's a specific tool that people use to loosen air hoses. I don't have that tool. I'm hoping I can take this screwdriver, heat it up, and bend it around to make like a U-shaped bend, and hopefully this will work to help me remove the hose. So far, so good. I just need to bend it one more time. That came out pretty good. Still having a really hard time removing these hoses. So I got my heater on there, hoping that'll loosen it up. In the meanwhile, I used my 7/16 socket to remove those 2 nuts off those studs up there. There's the nuts. I got one more under the hood, but the heater's in the way, so I'm gonna keep working on these hoses. The heat did seem to help. My little screwdriver that I made broke, or the handle broke off, but I'm using it with a wrench and I'm pulling on it like this, and I think it's about to pop off. Got one more to go after this, and then that nut. Success, finally. It wouldn't have been possible without this though. I hooked it back behind the hose, and I pulled on it with my channel locks, and that's how I got it off. Oh, that was very difficult though. I got the nut off back here. I had to use a deep socket 7/16 to get it off. But now everything under the hood is done, aside from draining the antifreeze, which I'm not going to do because there's obviously not enough that it's going to be flowing out. So I will drain it before I fill it back up, I suppose. But everything under the hood is done until I put the new heater core back in. The next step is to remove this electric thing, whatever it is. I noticed that the button to release these plugs is on the back side. Just a little button that you push. It wasn't as hard as I thought it was going to be. And to release this box, you push in here and up. These are the buttons. If you push in and up, it will pop right out. I'm going to go ahead and unplug the blend door actuator right here, which I should be replacing this since it's all open, but I didn't have money to buy another one. So that's really bad because it's probably due to be changed, and it's recommended that you do it when this is all open, but at least now I know how to get in here. I'm going to go ahead and remove this brace or bracket, whatever you want to call it, and it takes a 5/16 socket. OMG, that was so freaking difficult. If you notice, I finally got the stud out the hole, and I see why it was so difficult. Let me show you the stud. It's got this thing that stops it from turning, which is nice, but how are you supposed to punch that through? The thing is, I couldn't punch it because the whole air plenum chamber was moving with it. Now, if I reconnected the hoses, that would have held the chamber from moving, and then I could have maybe punched it through. But what I found was I put the claw of my hammer on this side, and I pried against where you see that rust, and with my hammer like this, and I pried this the stud right on out. It took a second because it was breaking that through, but I finally got it out. Still struggling to get this out. The only thing I can think is to remove this air duct. So I'm going to start with this piece, and after I get this piece out, I believe then I can remove this piece. So I started with this screw right here, which was taken out with a 7/32 screw, or socket, I mean. This screw right here came out with a number 7 socket. The screw at the bottom of the duct also came out with a 7mm socket. I'm thinking it's gonna pull out. There we go. Alright, there's some tape holding it, looks like. Okay, I removed a screw over there, screw here, here. Now there's 2 more down here. One right there, one right there. And then hopefully this duct will come out. I found the last screw that's holding this together, and that's right there, which connects this ductwork behind the instrument panel to the defrost ductwork, which I'm hoping is what is stopping me from finishing this. That screw is a 7/32 socket. Requires a 7/32 socket. Oh my god, that was hard to get out. Wow, my back hurts. This is quite a job. So I just really hope that that gave me the clearance I need to be able to finish this. Hopefully I can pull the air plenum chamber out now. Oh my god, guys, success. Oh, unbelievable. I'm out of breath. My back hurts. I'm probably gonna call it a day and finish this another day. Oh my lord. Whoa. I don't think I'm gonna finish it today, but we'll see. Oh man, that was so hard. I had to pull on it quite a bit. The trouble is the vent, the defrost vent that I was trying to get out, and the floor vent down there. Between those two things, it was very hard to get it out, but I pulled and pulled and it came. And so now there's 5 bolts or screws I pull out, then that cover comes off, and out comes the heater core. So I'm definitely gonna, at the very least, replace the heater core and set the dash back up on here. And then I'm probably gonna pull the carpet up and put a heater down there overnight to try to dry everything up, because after your heater core's been leaking for a while, there's bound to be water underneath your carpet. And I peeled it up and I saw lots of rust, and I don't want to have any holes in the floor. Okay, I'm going to use a number 8 socket to remove these 5 bolts. I removed the 5 bolts, and then I removed this piece that held the electronic thing, and then I removed the cover over the heater core, and there's the heater core. Now I'm ready to pull it out. Alright, I got it. There it is, guys. Look at all the antifreeze down there that I was breathing in while driving this vehicle. It's like a little pool. And if you look at the heater core, you can tell that it's definitely leaking. So, really happy with that. Here's the one part that I can throw. Yeah. Woo! Alright. I'm not going to put the heater core in today. I'm going to push the air plenum back up in there. Put my dashboard back up here. That way I can shut my doors for the night. But overnight I'm going to peel up the carpet and leave the heater on, my small little heater. So that way it'll dry up the carpets really good. And so I won't get any more rust underneath the carpet. Okay, so when I lifted up my carpet to see if this vent was in the way, which I ended up not doing anything with it, and it ended up being that the thing to do was to remove this vent up here, which feeds the defrost. Anyway, I wasn't sure if I had to remove this, and so when I peeked under here, I saw a huge puddle of water on both sides, and there was rust. So I got my thing that I grind down rust with, and I spray painted over the rust. Yeah, it's green, but nobody's gonna see this. There are some small holes here, so yeah, but I'm gonna have to address that another day. I've dropped the new heater core in here. Now these don't come with the foam wrapped around them. You have to do that when you get out the box, and the instructions say that these water inlets do swivel, but I didn't need to swivel them. They're perfect where they were. Alright, I dropped it in place. Now I'm going to put the, I guess it's a heater core cover of some kind on this thing. I was able to easily tell which screws went in there because it was the last item I removed, or the last couple of screws, and I had it in this box right here. So here they are in my hand, and they take a 5/16 socket. It is highly recommended to change the blend door actuator at this point. I have around 220,000 miles, and this is in 1997, so it's definitely due to go out anytime. And oh boy, I see that some kind of vacuum line got pulled loose. I'm not sure where this goes, but hopefully I'll figure it out. It must be somewhere on this firewall over here. As you can see under the hood, the water inlet tubes are in place, and it's definitely not what's holding it up from sliding in. It's got to be something else. I'm thinking it's the 2 bolts down below. I think the issue is that simultaneous to getting the air inlet tubes or pipes in the holes, they're up. Where the heck are they? Okay, you can't really see them now because I actually got the air inlet tubes in there mostly. But at the same time, I have to get this lined up with those 2 bolts that come out of the firewall. I thought about it a little bit, and I figured out where the problem is, or what's holding me up here. Underneath the carpet over here, you can see that the vent does not line up with the floor vent yet. So I need to get that lined up first, and that's the problem right there. I lined up the floor vent. That's all good, but I had to pull the water inlet hoses out of the firewall to do so. Now I'm hoping that when I go back in with the water inlet hoses, everything will be all good and it will just go right into place, but let's see. It's kind of funny, I wiggled it around and wiggled it around. I could not get it, and I out of a little bit of frustration, I balled up my side of my fist and just kind of gave it a few bumps and it slid on. So when all else fails, and get the hammer out and hit it a couple times. So the air plenum chamber is back where it's supposed to go. Now I can put my 2 bolts, or the 2 nuts on the bottom bolts. These are the brass nuts that go on those bolts. It was taken off and put back on with a 7/16 socket. Now I got one of them on. Now it'd be easier to put both of these on after I get my dash back, because my dash is very much in the way. However, I wanted to get at least one on, and that's what I'm gonna do. I'll put the other one on later. I got one on so that way the chamber won't move at all, and you can get to that nut and bolt very easily after the dashboard's out of the way. But my point is, now that I have one nut on there, I know that the air plenum chamber isn't going anywhere, and I'm free to go ahead and start the battle of getting the top bolt through the air plenum chamber. Man, I would love to just disregard that bolt and not even mess with it, because this is a serious pain. The nut is behind the blend door actuator. I got the bolt at the top of the air plenum chamber right there. I got it worked in as far as I could by hand. That's it right there. But I'm gonna see if I can't smack it in the rest of the way with my hammer. Somehow, with all this stuff in the way. It's important to remember that when you're beating on a bolt that you put the nut all the way at the end of the bolt, so that way you're not damaging the threads. So when I hit the hammer on, it's going to hit the nut and not the side of the threads at the end of the bolt. I finally got the bolt all the way in. I really had to hit it pretty hard with the hammer before it busted through, because the bolt has this thing on the side that prevents it from turning once it's in there. So hopefully I didn't break anything on the back side or whatever, but it's in there, so we'll see if I can't get the nut on the back side now. Okay, there's the bolt. Way in the back. It's kind of blurry, but way in the back is the bolt right there. So now I need to get the nut on there, hopefully, somehow. Yeah, this is going to be next to impossible, basically. This is what I'm working with. This little swivel extension thing, and it's not magnetic. So as soon as I turn it to the side, the nut's going to fall out, but I'm going to give it a try. But, you know, it goes to show it's all about what tools you have. I had basically all the tools I need except for a decent swivel socket and a magnetic tip for my sockets. I've been struggling for a while fighting this, and I just now realized that the bolt slipped back through the firewall enough to where I can't get the nut on it anyway. So it's going to take two people, one person on the back side holding the bolt in and somebody on the inside trying to get this in. I can get it on there, but getting it threaded is becoming a real issue. So it's on the socket. I get it back there. Okay, I'm on the bolt. But here's where I'm having trouble, is getting it threaded. Alright, I finally got the bolt tightened on the top of the air plenum chamber. I've been working on this for a while. I tried all kinds of different things, but I found that what finally got it working was I slid the long end of the bolt back through from the firewall with the nut already attached to the end of it. Once I got it all the way in, I was able to tighten the nut up on this side with the swivel extension. It was not easy. This has to be one of the most difficult parts of the entire thing. I think I figured out where this vacuum line went. I believe it goes to the back of the silver thing up here, but I'm not entirely sure. I stuck it on the end of something. It felt like it went on, but when I get this all, when I get the dash back, I'll be able to get a better view of whether or not it actually goes there. I do have this bracket that goes right there that I need to put on also before I install the dashboard. But for now, I'm gonna hang the dash back up there so I can shut my doors for the night. Today, I'm determined to finish this. This stupid seatbelt sticking up in the seat is making it so difficult. But I'm working on getting the defrost vent back installed in the dashboard, and it is just really hard to get in there. Oh my goodness. I'm still struggling with this defrost vent. I can mostly get it into place, but the issue is getting it connected back to this other vent that's down here. But I realized that without the instrument cluster in the way, I can put my hand in here and kind of guide this tube to connect into it a little easier. I noticed there's only one screw holding it, so if I could take that one screw out, it'd probably be easy, but then getting that screw back into the back side of here would be difficult because I can't see barely back there. Goodness, I finally got it. That was really difficult. Basically, I had to push this all the way out towards the firewall, do a lot of bending and everything, but that was the easiest thing. If I didn't have the instrument cluster in the way, I don't know if I would be able to do it. I had to push this vent out to connect to it. The other option, like I said, would have been to remove this screw over here that's holding it, but I think installing it would have been difficult without a magnet on my socket. So anyway, now I can put the screws back in my defrost vent, and I gotta connect these hoses on each end. There's two of them that go to the side doors. Alright, I got this vent on. Now I just need to connect the one that goes to the side. It goes right here. There's no clamp or anything. Once it slides all the way on, it just stays. Okay, so that one's on. And then I still got this vent right here. That one was fairly easy to get to and take on and off. But the next thing I'm going to do is put all the screws that hold this defrost vent to the back side of the dash. Okay, I'm putting the defrost vent back in here, and I'm attaching the screws. I'm using a number 7 socket with these brass colored screws. I believe these are the right ones. I have a small pile, all came from this. The little tiny ones go they screw from one vent to the other, like one's underneath the bottom of this vent and one goes into where these two vents connect, that hole back there. Okay, upon looking at these screws closer, the black one screws into steel and the brass one screws into plastic. You can tell by the tip. And so, knowing that, I look down here and the black one goes at the bottom of this vent. I'm not sure if you guys can see it. The other black one goes on this side over here. There's a hole right there. I'm not sure if you guys can see it or not, but So there's 2 screws at the bottom of the defrost vent. They both get black screws. One's right here, and the other is over here. Okay, there is a screw that goes at the bottom of that vent. There's a small hole that you can see. It's one of these, that tiny little screw right there. My first try trying to get it in, I dropped it because of course I don't have magnetic tips for my sockets. I'm not going to worry about that little screw. The only thing I can think is I hope it doesn't cause a problem by the screw wearing on the wire harness it's sitting on or something like that. It's the same thing on this vent. Up top we get a screw that screws into plastic, so that's going to be the brass one. It has a different tip that's made for that. And on the bottom of this vent, it gets a screw that screws into metal, and that's going to be the black screw. So black one on the bottom, brass one on top, and then it's going to get the tiny little screw in that little hole over there, which I can get to that one. I can deal with that. And then I got to hook up this hose right here into that hole, and then I just got to connect some of these wires. I gotta put the little computer thing back here. The vent is all attached. The little hose on the back is attached. I just noticed that I did make a little mistake. Luckily it's not a major one, but I'm gonna have to take out those 2 screws, which I can do. Thank goodness. I can get to both of those screws. I'm gonna take them out, and this bracket goes on top of the heater core cover, but underneath of the screws. Yeah, I forgot about this. Okay, I got the bracket attached back on here. The screw in the back was kind of difficult to get to, but this mini little wrench really helped. 5/16 is the size you need for the wrench and the socket. I got the bracket back installed, and then this electronic box I just slid right down and it popped into place. It's very easy. I plugged the 2 plugs in. I got the dashboard in place, and it did not knock the clips off this time. However, now I can't get the bolt threaded through the bracket. So I'm going to pop it back off slightly. And what I'm learning is that you really need to get the bolt through the bracket first, and then swing that end of the dashboard on top of it without knocking the clips off. I forgot about this bracket back here. This bracket, which is really important, had to be put back on, and I had to take the dash off to do that. It also has this thing that holds the wire harness that's not being used. It plugs into that just to kind of keep it out of the way. There's 2 holes that this pops into the duct right there, and there's another one underneath here. Okay, I got all this back together. One thing that messed me up a little bit is that I had pulled this off, but you have to kind of put this on first before you put this hose on, because this hose goes underneath of this. So I had to take this back off and then slide this under here and then reattach that hose. Okay, the wire harness is plugged back in there. Now I'm going to put the dash back on here and see if I can pick up where I left off. I think that's everything now, finally. I know that when I put it back, I have to be careful to make sure that bracket doesn't go in the wrong spot. I've heard that you can have trouble with getting it lined up properly as you put the dash back, but let's see. In the process of taking the dash off again, I dropped this clip once again. So now I've only got 3 holding it on. I still feel like that's gonna be okay. I'm kind of in a hurry now. I really need to get my car finished. I need my car back. Okay, I had the bracket installed this time. Dash is back on. So now I'm ready to keep moving forward. Hopefully no more missteps. Alright, this little clip goes into that bracket. Now's a good time to put this last nut on the bolt at the bottom of the air plenum chamber. It's right there. I can get to it a lot easier now. Okay, all the plugs are plugged in. I was struggling for a minute because I had 2 extra wire harnesses. I couldn't figure out where they went, and I had to get under here and look better, and they went right there. So all the wire harnesses are plugged in. This one goes to the power outlet. That's a bulb that I put in at that same time that goes into the plastic cover that goes underneath here. And then I have This up here goes to the airbag. So I'm moving right along here. Now the kick plate slides into a little clip back here, and it has a long screw that goes in here. 3 short screws go in the bottom here. And I'm going to blow out the dirt and then install this little piece that kind of just clips in place. Okay, so we're going to slide each end in. Okay, both the ends are in, and now it should just pop into place. One, I thought it was 3, but let's see, 2, 3. The vent has to go in first before the airbag because of this lip. The airbag has to go in first before the trim that, or the bezel, whatever it's called, that goes beyond the rest of the dash. I got that on now, and the screw that goes in here is the same black screw that goes in all of these, and that's with, again, a 7mm socket. Underneath the glove box, we put in these larger brass bolts. There's 2 of them, and they are installed with a 5/16 socket. I'm going to go ahead and put the kick plate on this side along with the sill plate. I'm going to use my handy dandy little vacuum to get all the dirt out first before I do so. In order to install the shift indicator cable right there, I had to pull that piece off, and now I got to pull this metal plate back off one more time, hook up the shift indicator cable, put the plate back on, put the plastic piece back on. I'm done. Everything is back together. I am finished, except for the only thing left is I still need to flush the coolant. Okay, success. I finally finished this job. It was a really big job. It took a really long time. You know, it probably wouldn't take, hopefully it won't take you guys as long, because you'll have this video that would have hopefully helped you guys. I also just had a lot of other stuff going on in between that I had to stop working on the car to do other things like watch my kids and all that, etc. But I'm pretty proud of myself. It actually came out really good, but I will tell you, there were a few moments where I was worried whether I was actually going to be able to finish this job and be able to do this. You know, there was a couple parts that were extremely difficult. The hardest part, I think, was getting the air plenum chamber disconnected from the firewall, mostly because of this bolt that's very difficult to reach. Another part that I really struggled with was getting the vent, the defrost vent, reattached back behind the dash. Other than that, I guess the other main struggle was remembering in what order to put things back together when reassembling it, because you know, if you forget something, some things have to go on at a particular time, you know, before you assemble it all. And it didn't go perfect. Like I say, there were 4 mysterious screws. I don't know where they went to. I broke a couple small little pieces of plastic here and there. Nothing major though, you know. All in all, I think I did really good, and it's working. It's blowing heat, so I'm just ecstatic. I saved a lot of money. This isn't a job for anybody. I don't think just anybody can do this, but if you're determined and you've got patience, and you've got, you know, some tools, then you should be able to do it too. I will say that 2 tools that I wish I had had was a magnetic tip for my sockets, and a good swivel socket for my, I think it's my 1/4" ratchet. Those 2 tools would have made it a lot easier. Other than that, you know, it wasn't that bad once I figured out what to do. The issue was figuring out exactly what I needed to do. And, you know, that stemmed from not being able to find a good video that would help me out with these details. Let's see. I've got the Ford service manual for this car, but it really just, it didn't help me all that much. These books are hard to understand, to be honest. There was a couple pictures and diagrams, but maybe I just don't know how to use the book. I don't know. For me, it's nice if I can just have a YouTube video of somebody walking me through this. And I had to watch several different YouTube videos done by different people, and then learn a little bit from here and there from all the different videos, and then gather it all up to be able to, um, figure out what to do. It wasn't any one video that helped me. Each video was missing like a little bit of piece of information that I needed to be able to finish this. But I learned a little bit from here and there, and I just kind of figured it out also along the way. So I do hope this video helps one of you guys out there if you're attempting this. I don't usually do videos like this, but if this video does good, then maybe I will do more stuff like this. So thanks for watching my video.